Hey everybody, always Dizzy here. So I've made a game tracking spreadsheet. I started this, I'm not sure how long ago, maybe 3 months, possibly 4 months ago, when I was having a really bad downswing with my ratings online. Just my ratings were plummeting. And so I wanted to start to work on that. And so I wanted to track my games and to see what I could work on improving. And to do that, I made this spreadsheet. I like spreadsheets, so um, I made this, and I just kept building onto it, you know, every week or so, and I think I've made it into something that's pretty useful. And so I'm sharing this with anybody who would like it. It's completely free. If you want to thank me, you can like subscribe to my channel, or there's I've got a link in the spreadsheet if you want to like send me a dollar or something. But obviously, no need to do that. Yeah, so I'm going to both explain how the spreadsheet works and demonstrate how I've used it. So this is in Google Sheets. Um, it won't work in Excel. Would it work in Excel? Not fully. Some of it might work, but it won't work fully in Excel. But everyone has access to Google Sheets, and it's free to use Google Sheets, so um, that should be good enough for you. Excuse me. Okay, so this spreadsheet really consists of two main tabs, the Games tab and the Dashboard tab. Now this might look a little bit overwhelming at first, but it's pretty simple to use. So up top here, we have quick metrics, and there's a row for all of the games you play, and then the row for losses. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it will show you where you are having issues or where you're doing well. So this basically shows you the frequency of how often you are experiencing the issues down below in these categories here. So for example, these are my real games. This is my real data. I've actually tracked, what is it, 1,100? No, yeah, about 1,040 or so, 1,036 games exactly. I've actually tracked every single game, and I've written notes, I've analyzed them. Okay, so I started, back in May. So five months? Oh my God, I've been doing this for 5 months. Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Time flies. Okay. Anyways, so this is my real data. And you can see that my main issue are tactics here. 70% of my losses are due to tactics. Now, I will mention that since I'm making the spreadsheet public, I thought of a couple more of these issue columns to add. So I actually never tracked a deep tactic. What I did personally before, I only had a single tactic column before, but I thought it would be very useful to split it between a shallow tactic, meaning a tactic that is like a simple one, basically, like something within 2 to 3 moves. Let's say 3 moves. And then a deep tactic is something that I missed that is a more complicated tactic. So I've split that up, and I'm actually probably going to stop tracking for a while because I have enough data for me to work on to know what to work on my game. But the next time I run this, it might not be for another 6 months or something. I will then start tracking both shallow tactic and deep tactic. This is very useful to know because knowing on what to target. So once you have your data set, knowing what you should be focusing on, like let's just say this is my actual data where it's actually 0%. Well, I know that I don't really have to work on my calculation exactly. I don't have to work on the more difficult puzzles. I need to work on simpler puzzles, right? So I should be doing simpler puzzles, but more of them, as opposed to harder puzzles. And okay, I think you get the idea. And these are, for all the games and for the losses. I think it's more important to look at the ones of the losses, but still useful to have it for all games because you might have, there's still a trend there, but usually they will correlate more or less. Yeah, and so to get these quick metrics, whenever you finish a game, or it might it might be after a series of games, you simply enter in the date. You can just do that by double clicking, and a calendar tool will pop up. Then you enter in the URL of your game. So this works for Lichess and chess.com, but you can also, if you're playing on some other site, even though there's no other site that exists, but if you're playing on like chessabc.com, you can just put that in too. Or if you're playing over the board, you could just write something like OTB. It will work. Now, when you enter in the URL for chess.com, you can simply just paste the URL. For Lichess, I recommend that you remove the /black or /white at the end. It's not mandatory, but excuse me, need some water. But if you do, if you do remove those, it will help track if you accidentally put in duplicates. Because when I first started doing this, I started accidentally putting in duplicates because I finished playing like 10 games and I forgot that I already put one in there. If you do put in a duplicate, it will automatically highlight here as red, and it will highlight as orange if you put the slash in there like I did here early on. You'll see that I did that early on, but I didn't do it later on. I'm kind of like, this isn't a big deal what I'm talking about here. It's not mandatory to use the sheet, but I thought I'd be thorough. So after you put in the URL of your game, you then just put in the time control that you played the game. And then don't do anything on the gray column. This is the automatic formula. I actually used to do this manually, but then I thought, why am I don't actually need to do it manually because a formula can figure out if I had a time management issue. So if you find that you have, you're spending too much time in the middle game or like the opening, you can check a box here. So let me actually, let me just go to the bottom here. So let me put in here. Okay, might as well do this. So I'm going to paste that in. It should probably highlight red. There we go. It highlights there because it's a duplicate, warning you that you already put it in. Anyways, let me just put in some sample data here. So yeah, if you have time trouble in the opening, this will automatically check. It's just signifying that overall you had a time management issue of some type during the game. But if you want to drill down what stage that happened in, then you can put that in. If you had issues, if you were slow in both the end game or too quick in the end game and the opening, you can check that you had an issue there. If you missed a shallow tactic, you can click that and, let's say you had an opening issue and so on and so forth. So I've got a few interesting issues here. I have premature draw. So sometimes people might not try to fight as hard and just kind of acquiesce to a draw. Stole that term from Daniel Naroditsky there, acquiesce. Or you might have offered a draw early on when you still had winning chances. Premature resignation. I think this is something, especially for lower. Well, no, I don't know if that's quite true. I was going to say for lower rated players, but everyone can have this issue where you resign too early, but you still had chances, right, to eke out a draw or to even win. So that's why there's an NA up here because it doesn't apply to all games. Complacency. I think this is a big thing. I am working on. For me, I actually only have 1%. Although I did add it later on, after I logged 300 games or something. So it's not quite accurate for my purposes, but it's something to keep an eye out when you might be winning the whole game, and then you start to let off the gas, or you're not as careful. You're complacent. And that can cost you games. So I put that in there, and then I put tilt. I don't really have an issue with this, but I think a lot of people do. So I put in the tilt column, and that's obviously something that people can work on. Then you just select the outcome of the game, win, loss, or draw. And then optionally, you can put in the notes. Now, personally, I've been, after every game, except for Bullet, I will analyze the game, and then I will write out a summary of the game on how I could improve, where I went wrong and how I could improve. So usually that will just correlate to which check boxes you select. So you can kind of just see what I wrote there. But that's completely optional. Yeah, that's up to you. So yeah, obviously filling this out takes time, but I think if you're serious about tracking, wanting to track this data and focusing on improving, well, that's probably time well spent. It's good to reflect. Okay, I'm just going to delete this row. Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's because it doesn't want us to touch the gray column there. So I actually should have, I'm just going to copy these back in here. It's going to give me that error again. Okay, there we go. Okay, and then we have the dashboard tab. So, oh, you know what? I forgot to add in, okay, I'll do that before I distribute the spreadsheet, but I forgot to add in those two new columns I put in, the shadow tactic and tilt. I forgot to put that in here. So I'm going to actually just make a note for myself. Okay, so I don't forget. Okay, so what was I going to say? I already forgot. I think I was just going to describe this tab. Yeah, so on this dashboard, this lets you filter and drill down the report to a finer degree. So you can only edit the cells on this tab that are in yellow. So for time frame, you can select through a number of predefined ranges. So, you know, this month, this year, last year, 1 month, and so on. You can also customize it. If you want to know like how you did during like a 3-week span, you can go to custom. These will then turn yellow if you give it a second. And then you can select your exact range. Let's say we want to know like these 2 weeks, we can do that. But I'm going to do it to all time. And then you can select your time control. So if you want to just look at like your classical games, give it a second and that will update, and so on. But I'm going to use all. And yeah, you can filter between win, loss, and draw. So you can select any combination of these. Any combination will work. This was not fun to code. And then you can select which site. So if you want to know just like your Blitz games from chess.com that you lost, you can drill the data down by that. And all of these will update, as will the graph. Okay, I think I have everything there. So this graph, this shows the cumulative average. So in the beginning of the graph, it's going to be quite skewed because in your first game, let's say you won your first game. After that, you're going to have a 100%. So let's say you lost your first game. You're going to have 100% issue with whichever issue that you put for that game. The more games you play and you log into here, the more accurate this will be. So like for the first like 10 games, it's going to be wildly inaccurate. But then as you play more games, it'll become more accurate, if that makes sense. Yeah, you can use this drop down to select any of the issues, and then it will chart it. It will chart it in this graph. Okay, so like tactical issue, I think it was already there. Well, maybe it wasn't. Yeah, there you go. So you can see what I'm saying. Like the first little bit is not super accurate, but then it becomes accurate. And then below we just have a pie chart where you can easily see the issues that cause you the most frequent problems. One nice thing about this spreadsheet is third-party services that automatically go through your games. They're not going to be nearly as accurate as this, because this is you personally going in and analyzing your games and identifying the issues. And sites like Aim Chess or whatever, they're not going to be able to tell if you tilted, right? They're not going to be able to have these psychological components to it, like complacency, tilt, premature resignation. And even the time management, do you want to, like, it's better if you fill these out than some algorithm. Okay. And then finally, there is another little bonus here. I've actually made it so you can import your Lichess ratings and then track it over here. So you can actually see correlations. Let's say I identified that my tactics were a problem. And so I spent the last 2 months doing lots of puzzles. I could then track my rating over top of the issues of tactics and then see if working on the puzzles for the last 2 months has actually helped my rating, right? So this only works for Lichess rating. Chess.com, as far as I know, doesn't have a public API. I could be wrong, but I don't think they do. Maybe they do, I don't know. But in any case, I have this working for Lichess. And so to turn this on, it's off by default. To turn it on, simply enter in your username, your Lichess username on the Lichess settings tab. And then select which time control you want to use. Like, do you want it to use your blitz rating or your rapid rating and so on? So whichever you use the most, ideally the slower time control that you use the most frequently is what I would recommend. And then just turn this on. Now, depending on how many games you have on your Lichess account, that will dictate how long this takes to run. So this little, you can't see it on my screen for some reason. That's kind of weird. But on the upper right hand corner here, there'll be like a little loading screen. It's still loading for me right now because I've got games from 2018. So excuse me. I really needed to bring water. But yeah, long story short, the older your Lichess account, the longer this will take to run. But generally, it should take maybe 1 to 2 minutes. And that's only when you turn it on or off, it will take that long. I think it's done now. And so now when we go to the dashboard, we can see the red line shows my Lichess rating. And you can see the rating on the right-hand side of the y-axis. And the percentage of frequency of the shallow tactic issue is on the left-hand side. And so quite flatlined here. If I do something else, most of them will correlate. The weaker you are, the more they will not correlate, which is a good thing. I think the higher rated you are, the harder it is to improve, right? So, okay, I'm kind of just rambling here, but let me just change this to positional issue. So this gives you another look. So, something that this did help me with, is the time management. When I first started doing this, I noticed that I was playing really slow, and I still have this problem, but it was even worse before. I was playing really, really slow in the opening and middle game, and I've been really working on that. So let's just take a look at that here. So let's take a look at time management in the opening. This will be for all time. So it's not major, but you can see something here. So obviously we want to ignore the very beginning, because as I told you before, it's going to be a bit inaccurate. But you can see here, it's a lot higher than it was later on, right? This was around 6%, but now it's 5%. Okay, so 1% difference, but I did work on that. I have been working on that. You don't see it in my rating though, because it wasn't enough of a shift. If this was 30% and then I brought it down to 6%, I think you'd see a difference in the rating. And if I do that with the middle game, time management, this should be T. I got to fix that too. It should be TM. Oh no, I see. I did TT for time trouble, but here I did TM, so I should make them consistent. I'll make that change. Okay. Yeah, similarly for the middle game, right? You can see, so here I was around 11%. Right, when I first started doing this, around 11, 12%. but now it's 9%. So a 2% improvement in time management in the middle game. And like at that point I was 2100 or around there, and then and I gained 50 points. So this stuff is pretty useful, but I'll leave it there. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, hopefully this is useful for somebody. If not, well, that's fine. I originally built it for myself. So, okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.